Have you ever wondered why some women struggle with deep-seated feelings of inadequacy, despite appearing successful on the surface? Why do certain patterns keep repeating in their relationships, careers, and self-perception? Today, we're diving deep into Carl Jung's revolutionary psychological framework to understand one of the most complex and painful dynamics in human development. What happens to daughters raised by narcissistic parents? Jung's analytical psychology offers profound insights into how our early experiences shape not just our conscious minds, but our entire psychological architecture. When we examine the daughter-narcissist-parent relationship through Jung's lens, we uncover layers of trauma, adaptation, and survival mechanisms that continue to influence adult women long after they've left their childhood homes. The narcissistic parent creates what Jung would recognize as a deeply wounded psychological environment. Unlike healthy parenting, where the child's authentic self is nurtured and celebrated, the narcissistic parent treats their daughter as an extension of themselves. This creates what we call a false self, a carefully constructed persona designed to meet the parent's emotional needs rather than express the child's true nature. Before we continue this journey of understanding, I want to ask you to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. We're building a community of people who are committed to psychological growth and healing, and your support helps us create more content like this that can truly transform lives. Jung emphasized that every individual has an inherent drive toward wholeness, what he called a-individuation. However, daughters of narcissistic parents face unique obstacles in this journey. They learn early that their worth is conditional, tied to their ability to reflect their parents' grandiose self-image or to serve as emotional regulation for an unstable adult. This dynamic creates what Jung would identify as a severe disruption in the natural development of the psyche. The child's energy becomes focused on external validation rather than internal growth. She learns to read micro-expressions, anticipate needs, and shape-shift her personality to avoid the devastating experience of narcissistic rage or withdrawal of love. The psychological cost is enormous. These daughters often develop an over-functioning persona while their authentic self retreats into what Jung called the shadow, the hidden, repressed aspects of personality that don't fit with the conscious self-image. Understanding the shadow becomes crucial when examining the psychological landscape of daughters raised by narcissistic parents. Jung described the shadow as containing not only our negative traits, but also our unrealized potential, aspects of ourselves we've learned to suppress because they were deemed unacceptable by our environment. For daughters of narcissists, the shadow often contains their authentic emotions, needs, and desires. Anger, sadness, disappointment, and even joy may be relegated to the shadow if expressing these emotions threatened the narcissistic parent's fragile ego. The daughter learns that her genuine feelings are dangerous, potentially triggering explosive reactions or cold withdrawal from the person she depends on for survival. This creates what Jung would recognize as a profound split in the psyche. The conscious persona becomes hyper-adaptable, people-pleasing, and achievement-oriented, while the shadow holds all the authentic responses that were too risky to express. The result is a woman who may appear highly functional, but feels internally empty, disconnected from her own emotional truth. Jung's concept of projection also plays a significant role in these family dynamics. The narcissistic parent projects their own shame, inadequacy, and emotional instability onto their daughter. She becomes the repository for everything the parent cannot accept about themselves. This projection is so persistent and overwhelming that the daughter often internalizes these projected qualities as her own truth. The anima and animus, Jung's concepts of the feminine and masculine aspects within each person, become distorted in this environment. A daughter may develop an over-identification with what she perceives as acceptable feminine traits: compliance, self-sacrifice, and emotional caretaking. Meanwhile, her healthy masculine qualities, assertiveness, boundary setting, and self-advocacy get buried in the shadow as too threatening to the narcissistic parent's need for control. This psychological splitting has profound implications for how these women navigate adult relationships. They may find themselves repeatedly attracted to partners who replicate the familiar dynamic of emotional unavailability or control. Their underdeveloped sense of self makes it difficult to recognize healthy love when it appears, as it feels foreign and unfamiliar. The mother-daughter relationship, when tainted by narcissism, creates what Jung would see as a severe disruption in the natural feminine initiation process. Instead of learning to trust her intuition and honor her inner wisdom, the daughter learns to doubt herself and seek external validation for even basic decisions. The journey towards psychological healing for daughters of narcissistic parents requires what Jung called making the unconscious conscious. This process involves recognizing and reclaiming the aspects of self that were forced into hiding during childhood. It's a courageous journey that demands facing painful truths about family dynamics while simultaneously nurturing the authentic self that was suppressed. One of the most challenging aspects of this healing journey is what Jung identified as the personal unconscious, the repository of forgotten, repressed, or ignored experiences. For daughters of narcissists, this personal unconscious is often filled with instances of invalidation, emotional neglect, and subtle forms of psychological abuse that were normalized in their family system. The process of individuation, Jung's term for becoming who you truly are, requires these women to differentiate between their authentic voice and the internalized voice of the narcissistic parent. This internalized voice often manifests as a harsh inner critic that constantly judges, criticizes, and undermines self-worth. Learning to recognize this voice as an introjected foreign element rather than truth is crucial for psychological freedom. Jung emphasized the importance of dream work in accessing unconscious material, and daughters of narcissistic parents often report powerful dreams related to their childhood experiences. These dreams may feature themes of imprisonment, pursuit, or scenarios where they're trying to save or please an impossible-to-satisfy figure. Working with these dream images can provide valuable insights into unconscious patterns and point toward healing pathways. The concept of the wounded healer becomes particularly relevant here. Jung believed that our deepest wounds often become the source of our greatest wisdom and capacity to help others. Many daughters of narcissistic parents develop extraordinary empathy, intuitive abilities, and psychological insight as a result of their early experiences navigating complex emotional terrain. However, this wounded healer archetype can also become problematic when it leads to compulsive caretaking or the inability to receive care from others. The daughter may become so identified with the helper role that she struggles to access her own needs and vulnerabilities. Jung would see this as another form of psychological imbalance that requires conscious attention. The therapeutic relationship becomes crucial in this healing process. For many daughters of narcissistic parents, therapy provides their first experience of unconditional positive regard, being seen, heard, and valued for who they truly are, rather than what they can provide. This relationship can serve as a corrective emotional experience that slowly rewires their capacity for healthy attachment. Understanding Jung's concept of synchronicity also supports the healing journey. These meaningful coincidences often guide daughters toward resources, people, and experiences that facilitate their psychological growth and recovery. The integration of shadow material represents one of the most transformative aspects of healing for daughters of narcissistic parents. Jung believed that what we resist or deny about ourselves holds tremendous energy and potential. For these women, reclaiming their authentic anger, setting healthy boundaries, and expressing their genuine needs often feels revolutionary after years of suppression. This shadow work isn't about becoming selfish or uncaring. It's about achieving what Jung called wholeness. When a daughter learns to embrace her full range of human emotions and responses, she develops the psychological flexibility to respond authentically to life's challenges rather than defaulting to learned survival patterns. The process of recognizing and healing from narcissistic abuse often involves what Jung termed the dark night of the soul. This is a period of profound psychological upheaval, where old patterns and beliefs are dismantled before new, healthier structures can emerge. During this phase, daughters may experience intense grief as they mourn the childhood they never had and the unconditional love they deserved but didn't receive. Jung's understanding of the collective unconscious also provides valuable insight into this healing journey. The archetypal pattern of the wounded daughter appears across cultures and throughout history, suggesting that this experience taps into universal human themes of abandonment, betrayal, and the search for authentic selfhood. Recognizing this archetypal dimension can help women feel less alone in their experience and connect with the broader human story of resilience and transformation. The Great Mother archetype becomes particularly relevant in understanding what was missing in the narcissistic family system. The healthy Great Mother provides unconditional love, protection, and nurturing that allows a child to develop secure attachment and healthy self-regard. When this archetypal energy is absent or distorted, daughters must learn to provide it for themselves through what Jung called active imagination and conscious relationship with their inner world. Developing a relationship with the inner wise woman, another powerful Jungian archetype, becomes essential for daughters reclaiming their psychological autonomy. This inner figure represents intuitive wisdom, self-trust, and the ability to discern truth from manipulation. Cultivating this relationship helps counteract years of being taught to doubt their own perceptions and judgments. The concept of reparenting aligns beautifully with Jung's approach to psychological healing. This involves consciously providing for oneself the emotional attunement, validation, and support that was absent in childhood. It's not about changing the past, but about creating new neural pathways that support healthy self-relationship in the present. Jung emphasized that true psychological health involves the integration of opposites, what he called the transcendent function. For daughters of narcissistic parents, this might mean learning to balance their natural empathy with healthy self-protection, or integrating their capacity for love with appropriate skepticism about others' motivations. The journey towards psychological wholeness for daughters of narcissistic parents involves what Jung called holding the tension of opposites. This means learning to contain seemingly contradictory experiences without rushing to resolve them prematurely. A daughter might feel both love and anger toward her narcissistic parent, or experience both strength and vulnerability simultaneously. Jung taught that growth happens in this liminal space between opposites. One of the most profound shifts in this healing journey involves moving from external validation to internal authority. Jung's concept of individuation requires developing what he called the transcendent function, the ability to synthesize conscious and unconscious material into new understanding. For daughters who were trained to look outside themselves for approval and direction, learning to trust their inner knowing represents a fundamental transformation. The process of reclaiming personal power often involves confronting what Jung identified as complexes, autonomous psychological patterns that operate below conscious awareness. The not good enough complex, common among daughters of narcissists, can hijack behavior and decision-making for decades if left unexamined. Through conscious work, these complexes can be transformed from unconscious drivers into conscious allies. Dreams continue to play a crucial role in this transformation process. Many women report dreams of finding hidden rooms in houses, discovering treasure, or encounters with wise female figures. Jung would interpret these as the psyche's natural healing process, the unconscious mind presenting images of wholeness and possibility that the conscious mind is ready to embrace. If you're finding value in this exploration of Jung's psychology and how it illuminates the experience of daughters raised by narcissistic parents, please subscribe to our channel and share this video with someone who might benefit from this understanding. Your engagement helps us continue creating content that supports psychological healing and growth. The concept of active imagination becomes a powerful tool for daughters reclaiming their psychological freedom. This Jungian technique involves consciously engaging with unconscious material through dialogue, visualization, or creative expression. A daughter might have an imaginary conversation with her wounded inner child, or visualize herself setting boundaries with her narcissistic parent in a safe, controlled environment. The integration of feminine and masculine energies within the psyche, what Jung called balancing anima and animus, becomes particularly important for women who learn to suppress their assertive, boundary-setting qualities. Healing involves reclaiming the healthy masculine within themselves, the capacity to say no, to prioritize their own needs, and to take decisive action on their own behalf. Jung's emphasis on the second half of life as a time for psychological and spiritual development offers hope to daughters who spent their early years surviving rather than thriving. The final stage of this psychological journey involves what Jung called the birth of the self, the emergence of an integrated, authentic personality that transcends the limitations of early conditioning. For daughters of narcissistic parents, this represents the ultimate victory, becoming who they were always meant to be, independent of their family's dysfunction. This self is not the ego. It's something far more profound. Jung described the self as the archetype of wholeness, the part of us that was never damaged by trauma or conditioning. Connecting with this deeper self provides daughters with an unshakable foundation of worth that no external circumstance can diminish. It's the part of them that was always whole, even when everything around them suggested otherwise. The transformation often involves a complete reorientation of values and priorities. Women who once derived their sense of worth from pleasing others begin to prioritize their authentic expression. Those who sacrificed their dreams to maintain family peace start pursuing their genuine aspirations. The false self that was constructed to survive narcissistic parenting gradually dissolves, revealing the radiant, authentic self underneath. Jung believed that individuals who successfully navigate this journey of psychological integration have a responsibility to help others do the same. This is why many daughters of narcissistic parents become therapists, coaches, writers, or healers. Their wounds have become wisdom that can illuminate the path for others facing similar challenges. The concept of post-traumatic growth becomes relevant here. While Jung didn't use this modern term, his understanding of how suffering can catalyze psychological development anticipated this concept by decades. Daughters who heal from narcissistic family trauma often report developing greater empathy, deeper appreciation for authentic relationships, increased personal strength, and a more meaningful connection to their life purpose. The journey is not about forgiveness in the traditional sense. It's about what Jung called understanding. Understanding the psychological forces that shaped their narcissistic parent, understanding the survival mechanisms they developed, and understanding their own capacity for resilience and growth. This understanding brings freedom from resentment without requiring them to minimize or excuse the harm they experienced. As we conclude this exploration of Jung's psychology and its application to daughters of narcissistic parents, remember that healing is not a destination, but an ongoing process of becoming. Every step toward authenticity, every boundary set, every moment of self-compassion is a victory worth celebrating. The path from survival to thriving is challenging, but Jung's psychological framework provides a roadmap for the journey. Your authentic self is not lost. It's waiting to be discovered, embraced, and expressed in all its magnificent uniqueness.